Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Spartan Shadows podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chris, and I'm joined by my co-host, Emmett. Zach, unfortunately, couldn't make it this evening, so it's just the two of us you have today. But we're going to go over a bunch of athletics all over MSU from the past week. We've had a nice little week off with not a ton happening, but enough to where it's time to get in and kind of recap the weekend and last weekend and everything in between. So we'll have a little bit of basketball, women's basketball, gymnastics, hockey, football, tennis, everything in between. So we'll try to get you caught up on all the news. But yeah, we're happy you're here and thanks for joining us. And Emmett, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, especially considering almost all the news we have about all of Michigan State athletics is all positive. It is a very good time to be a Spartan.
Yeah, absolutely. This today especially was a good day. We're recording this Saturday, the 25th, and we had a lot of MSU athletics in action today, and all of it positives. We'll start off with men's basketball, who did play today, but we will start with last weekend's game against Illinois since we haven't gotten an episode out to you since then. Illinois was at the Breslin Center, and MSU won a close one, 80-78. Trey Holloman had 17 points, leading the way for the Spartans. Cohen Card and Frankie Fiddler chipped in 11 apiece. Back and forth game, pretty good game against two really good teams in the Big Ten, and it was a really good win for MSU. I thought it was going to be a game where I know we've been playing really well of late, but this was going to be kind of the toughest test in a while, and I wanted to see where MSU matched up, and they passed the test. So, Emmett, you were there covering the game, and what did you see?
Especially for the first time during Big Ten conference play, this was the first time we really saw the Spartans get punched in the mouth. They've had it when teams have gone on a run where they've been able to cut down leads or take a 4 to 6 point lead against the Spartans, but we've never really saw the Spartans trail by double digits. The Spartans were down 10 multiple points. I believe the last time they were down 10 was with 10:03 left in the first half. But this team, the Illini, came out firing. They had a lot of offense and also a lot of fouls, which turned out to really help the Spartans later. But after Kasparas, Yaksionis, I apologize for butchering that. The Lithuanian all-star who's going to be probably a top 5 pick in the NBA draft next year. Well, this upcoming year now, with it being 2025. He got in early foul trouble, having 2 fouls before the under 4 media timeout, which led to a fellow 5-star freshman, Will Riley, coming into the game. And Riley had 16 first-half points, and most of them came in his first 6 to 8 minute stretch, where the Spartans ended up trailing by 10. He was just automatic, firing off shot after shot, and everyone had that, okay, this is when a depth piece goes off and goes ballistic against the Spartans. We saw it with DeMarco Dunn of Penn State. We saw it today, which we'll get into later. So it was just really, the Spartans had to fight after getting punched in the mouth, and after the foul trouble with KJ, the Spartans, and once they really settled into Will Riley's style of play, they were able to crawl back and somehow have it as a tie game at half, and then get KJ into foul trouble again. Will Riley also had foul trouble, both playing with 4 fouls by the under 8, and then fall out KJ, which really helped this team advance and then win finally 80-78, with Illinois being the team to try to make those comebacks at the very end.
Yeah, you hit it on the head. Illinois got in foul trouble, and that was the topic of the week on social media, how the refs were terrible if you're an Illinois fan, and how it favored us all the way, and Izzo bought some fouls somewhere along the line or something. I don't know, but
the fourth fall on KJ was a very bad call. It looked like him and Cooper just got tangled. Not really much to call. 2 players got tangled and fell to the ground. It's not like one had an advantage. And we saw the makeup come today with Carson Cooper getting whistled for his 4th foul when he was legitimately injured on the court.
Yeah, laying on the ground. So we've known Big Ten officiating leaves something to desire pretty much all the time in basketball, and
we touched on it against Penn State.
Yeah, we complain about it every year for multiple games. It always happens, but that sent Illinois fans into a tailspin all week, and I think Brad Underwood even mentioned it because he was taking some shots post game about the refs and the calls, and honestly, I think it kind of threw Illinois off their game because you look and they had a few days off, but they got boat raced at home against Maryland after they played us too. So not a good couple of days for the Illini. And I think credit to MSU and Tom Izzo, it was because of our ability to fight and claw back. And I'm going to say it a lot about this team in pretty much every game I've seen this year, including today's. Their ability to kind of, I hate to use the Lions term, especially after last week, but they're the kind of way to out-grit other teams and just kind of impose their will and get into the dirty areas and out physical them and, just kind of claw and fight until the very end. This team has a really good resolve, and they're going to be a tough out at any game this year. Certainly don't think we're not going to lose again or anything crazy like that, but it's going to be a tough task to beat this team because they just won't go away, and they're playing together, and the depth that we have coming off the bench it's really tough to beat because you saw it when we got Illinois in a little bit of foul trouble when KJ falls out. Yeah, Will Riley came in and played outstanding for the first few minutes into the game and really affected us. But once we were able to kind of get used to it and level the playing field, I thought they did a really good job defending him in the second half. And I know he got in his own little bit of foul trouble, but I mean, holding him to 3 points in the second half was, I think, one of the biggest keys on why we ended up winning the game. So,
definitely agree.
Yeah, it was a great team effort, and Cohen Carr, I can't say enough about him so far, and I'm going to give him some more flowers when we talk about Rutgers today, but his game against Illinois and his game today, he's playing some outstanding basketball right now. Trey Holloman played really well against Illinois. He led, obviously, in scoring, but clutch shooting, facilitated the ball pretty well, even though he didn't have a ton of assists, but he was able to move around a lot, and played pretty decently defensively, too.
One more thing on Holloman. He had 17 points and led the team in scoring without making a three. He had 2 or 3 wide open threes, just couldn't get it to fall. And his first thing he talked about when he was available post-game for media was, I can't believe I missed those threes. I'm going to go back to the gym to get them. The man just put up his second best career performance and tied for his best in regulation because his best performance was at UNC for Maui when they had overtime, so extra time to score. But his first thoughts were, I'm going to go back, put in work in the gym, and get that 3 to fall. He had a 3 fall today, of course, so always good to see that. But that was just an impressive stat to see a guy lead the team in scoring with nearly put up 20 without making a single 3. Additionally, this was the first time we really saw the Spartans, quote-unquote, struggle from the line. They shot 77% against Illinois, which in years past, if we heard 77%, we would take it. But now we're saying, oh, this was an off game from the Spartans from the line, which is really weird to say. Holloman and Booker both missed only their second shots of the year from the foul stripe, which is an insane stat to me. I remember when I was writing up on the report, open their player profile and see, oh, that was only the second miss from the stripe all year, which can't say enough about how much this team has improved almost overnight.
Yeah, the free throw shooting has been a factor all year. They've been really good. Like you said, 77.8%, I think, overall. They went 21 of 27 from the line. And I don't have every game stats pulled up with me right now, but that's one of the lowest numbers I can recall since one of the first couple of games of the season. So they've been shooting really well. They shot better today. So that was good. And just the last little piece of foul shooting and fouls in general. If you happen to look at the number of free throws attempted, it was even at 27. I know Illinois fans don't like to hear that, but we shot the exact same amount of free throws. MSU actually...
attack on the bench ended up being the difference in a 2-point game. The Illinois bench got a tech right after a slightly controversial call where I'm not sure, I was not down at court level, I was up in the press area, but it looks like either a player or Tom Izzo called for a timeout, and obviously Tom Izzo can't call for a timeout before a certain, I believe it's under 2 or under 4 in the game. Izzo signaled for a timeout on a loose ball, on what was a loose ball or possession problem, and the Illini bench was incensed and said that Izzo called it. I don't remember hearing in post-game player availability if anyone had called it on the floor.
I think they did. I think they gave credit. I can't remember who the player was, but I think they said the player.
I think it was Fiddler.
Yeah, I think Fiddler.
Fiddler also shot, which he was one of the best free throw shooters, but he also shot the tech fouls. So. Yeah, that really incited the whole Illinois bench. But that free throw shooting ended up being the difference again. I mean, in a 2-point game,
we made 4 more free throws than Illinois. And that, I mean, like you said, the tech call was late and down the stretch, and that proved to be a big part of the game. But overall, a big win for the Spartans. That really kind of made Illinois kind of fall behind the 8 ball in the Big Ten regular season race a little bit. And then the kind of letdown game shortly after against Maryland. Now they're sitting with, what, four conference losses, I think.
Also Northwestern.
Yeah,
Maybe
USC, I think.
Yeah, USC.
But yeah, so they're sitting at 4 conference losses now, and I know they play us one more time, but there's not a ton of conference games left. I mean, there's still more, but we're getting into February now almost, and you're getting to the last month and a half of the season, and that's hard when MSU still doesn't have a conference loss, and the 2 teams in between us and Illinois only have 2. So you're sitting in 2 losses back already, and you got some games, you're not going to get a ton of chances to make those ups. It was a big win for the Spartans. I know we still have to play Illinois. Like I said, they go to Champaign on February 15th. That'll be a tough test, tough place to play. I'm sure Illinois is going to be looking for a get back, and so that'll be another big test, part of the brutal February schedule we have. So that'll be interesting to see how the Spartans fare there. Any other thoughts on Illinois before we switch it over to Rutgers, Emmett?
Just one thing, their letdown game against Maryland, I think Maryland's better than advertised this year.
They are.
I know that they are not ranked, but they did receive a vote in the top 25 rankings, so this Maryland team is not bad. They're not ranked, but I think they are a team that very well could end the year ranked. Michigan State, right now as it stands for the schedule, they have played, besides Illinois, they have played the bottom 6 of the Big Ten, and that will continue until game 10, I believe, in the schedule, or game 11.
Yeah.
So, yes, the Spartans have had a very easy schedule to start, but it's very backloaded. Mm-hmm. That said, you don't see these teams go through all these games and not drop one. Like Michigan dropped one to Minnesota, who was 0-6.
They also beat...
That happened last time we recorded.
I think they beat Oregon.
Purdue has dropped one to a bottom 16. So usually you see at least one time, any given game, a team will stand out and beat one of these upper Big Ten teams. Yep. So the Spartans have not had that really letdown game yet, which terrifies me heading into Tuesday, but we'll preview that a little bit more after we review today's game.
Yeah, and you mentioned it's backloaded. Minnesota currently, I think, still sitting at the bottom of the Big Ten, and that's who we play Tuesday. But they just beat Michigan for their first conference win, and Michigan's obviously a really good team this year. And
they're on a 3-game win streak.
Yeah, Maryland is, like you said, they're not ranked, but they're still, I believe, 15-5 overall. They're not a bad team. I know that was their first conference road win, so that's an impressive way to get it, I guess. But they have some really good talent there, and MSU has to play at Maryland this year at the end of February. So, but you're looking at, before we switch it over to Rutgers real quick, I mean, you said the schedule's backloaded. In the month of February, we get the 2 West Coast games, which USC and UCLA aren't maybe as good as they started, but they're still really good teams. And then traveling out west is tough. Then we go number 15, Oregon comes in. We go to number 17, Illinois. These are this week's rankings. Obviously, they'll change. We have Purdue, who's ranked 11th in East Lansing. We go to Michigan, who's ranked 21st. To Maryland, who's had some quality wins, even though they're not ranked. And then in March, 2 of our 3 games in March, you got ranked Wisconsin and ranked Michigan for Senior Day. So, and then the other game is at Iowa, which is always a tough place to play. So it's not an easy remaining schedule by any stretch of the imagination. I think we're built to withstand some of it, sure, but there's going to be some adversity to overcome because we're going to drop a game or 2 in there somewhere. So hopefully you can win the big ones against like Michigan and Purdue and Illinois maybe, and that kind of would cement probably a conference championship. But yeah, you got a lot of tough tests night in and night out coming up, and you definitely played the easier part of your schedule coming into now. So
yeah, you don't get that break in the future.
Yeah. So, and even it started kind of today. I know Rutgers isn't the best team in the league either, and we were kind of fortunate that Dylan Harper's still a little banged up. But going in today, Rutgers is still a good team. We played at Madison Square Garden, which has been a house of horrors for us. And Spartans, I mean, a rough start very early, but quickly overcame that. I mean, I didn't get the start of the game. I turned it on when we were down, I think, 10 or 11 to 3, and then we exploded from there and never looked back. MSU ended up winning 81-74. It was a little closer at the end because Rutgers got ridiculously hot from three down the stretch while we were
NBA
fouling.
threes for the final two.
Yeah, NBA threes from everywhere. It was another solid win. Like I said, Dylan Harper was hurt. He didn't start. He did play in the first half for Rutgers. Played a little bit in the second half, and then didn't come back out. I think he saw the bench with 18 minutes or 17 minutes to go in the second half, and then he didn't come back. So he's still recovering, but you still have to win. I mean, they had some good pieces and they had a lot of scoring, but we were able to pull it through. Jace Richardson leading the Spartans with 20 points, 4 rebounds and assists. Cohen Carr had another 14 points today, another double-figure game. Jaden Akins added another 12. Xavier Booker had a really good game, even though his outside shooting was not falling, but I thought he was one of the best players on the court, and Emmett mentioned pre-recording that he led the team in plus-minus, so...
plus 13.
Yeah, so that's good to see Xavier Booker being that engaged, and he played pretty decently on defense, too. I thought Frankie Fiddler had some good minutes, even though he didn't really light up the score sheet. We controlled the glass. We out-rebounded them by 10. We shot 48% from the field. 50 bench points today, which is insane. I know we average a lot of bench points, but 50 is a big number. Obviously, 34 of them were from Jason Cohen, but still, when you're getting 50 points off your bench, that's very good. So another big, deep team win, a lot of scoring from a lot of places, and it was a good win to finally get a W at the Garden. So what do you think of today's game?
So heading into the game, I was terrified because it's Madison Square Garden, which, as Chris said, it's a house of horrors for MSU. The last time they played there would be 2023 for the Sweet 16. We know how that went. We don't want to talk about it still.
Kansas State game, yep.
And then also Michigan State was wearing their black uniforms, which it's been very hit or miss. It feels like previous year's teams before this one's, they brought out the black uniforms and you felt like Michigan State was about to get 20-burgered. And you kind of see that right now with football too. So you see the black uniforms, you love how they look, but you hate how your team plays in it. Was
still
kind
my
of
favorite
the
uniform.
Yeah. Agreed. Completely agreed. But I just saw that, and I think I texted Chris, or it might have been a group chat this morning, and I was like, man, we're about to get it today. But, yeah, and then the game actually started. Michigan State goes down early, and you think it's going to be another Madison Square Garden game. And then this team just started fighting back. One thing that stood out to me, on top of the 50 bench points that you see, the entire Michigan State bench, besides Kurt Tang and Garrick Norman, who played the final 50 seconds or so for Michigan State, the entire bench was +7 or better, with Fiddler, Richardson, Cooper at +7, Carr +8, Booker +13. Another player that played arguably one of their better games too was Trey Howman. He had a couple turnovers, I believe finished with 3 on the day. 2 of them were him losing his balance on a very slick court. We saw players falling left and right.
Yeah, there was a lot of issues.
So it wasn't dumb passes or something like that, but Howman got his 3 after going 0 for 2, 0 for 3 against Illinois. Got that 3 to fall. It was just a game that, sure, a 7-point victory doesn't look like much, but when you factor in the amount of times that Rutgers had a 3, and it is a lot better than you would first think. Additionally, Michigan State pulled away late, which was something that stood out to me. This was a team where Michigan State just finished. They could have easily let Rutgers, when they're hitting their weird threes, NBA-level threes, you could easily see a team roll over and die, have bad turnovers, let Rutgers come within 2, and then really survive them. Instead, this team just continued to have their guys come out, and despite the guards not having a, quote, phenomenal day, which was, I believe, what Spartan Hoops DK said, and Trey Hellman had some thoughts on that. I saw that back and forth on Twitter. The guards, I believe, played all right, and at the very end, you saw 4 guards and Cohen Carr at 5 for when Rutgers was going to be trying to foul and put anyone at the line. Izzo put the guys he had the most trust in at the line and the most creativity of their group. And Izzo was daring them, okay, put them on the line or let them create a play with Cohen Carr able to fly in from anywhere. And that stood out to me because Cohen Carr, if you had told me last year that he would be a guy MSU trusts at the 5 to finish a game or to be the guy shooting foul shots at the end of a game, I would have laughed in your face. But now Carr is I believe, has only missed 3 or 4 shots of his last 30 from the foul stripe or something insane. This might have been, between Illinois and today, this might have been the first time since the start of the year he had back-to-back games with a single missed free throw. Cohen Carr has taken that next step. He is arguably the player that's seen the biggest improvement that I can remember from year 1 to year 2 under his.
Yeah, he's no longer just the highlight reel dunker, even though you see that. He had a couple of great ones today, but he's locked in defensively. He's making free throws. He's making mid-range shots. He's rebounding the basketball. There was a few times last year in games, he's the best athlete on the court in that he can out-jump anyone, but yet he would struggle to get a rebound or to kind of be able to get out and facilitate the way he can. And I mean, he was just the guy looking to go posterize somebody. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it makes it a lot easier to defend if you're somebody who's playing against him. But this year, it's total different. He's got almost a complete game. He's made some 3-pointers, even though that's not a strong suit of his game yet, and I don't know if it ever will be. Really, nobody on the team.
I don't doubt it with how he's been improving.
Yeah,
I will not doubt Cohen Carr becoming automatic from 3. With how much he's improved just on free throw shooting since November alone, I won't doubt Cohen Carr being an automatic 3 machine as a junior if he comes back.
And that'd be
assuming
great.
that the NBA doesn't come calling, which I won't rule out with how much he's improved.
Yeah, that's if he develops the rest of his game, he's not going to be in East Lansing a full 4 years because he'll get that NBA contract sooner than later. But and the athleticism still is better than almost anybody on the court at any given time. He can still do the highlight reel dunks. I know the Spittin' Chicklets boys for Barstool, the hockey podcast, they did a piece about MSU hockey, and Red Savage and Isaac Howard took them over to watch basketball practice, and Cohen Carr dunked over Red Savage, jumped over him dunking. So that's still there, obviously, but it's just the rest of his game developed, and he's become a really viable weapon. I know Jeremy Fears didn't have his best game today, and at times was struggling on defense at a couple different rates in the second half. And they moved Cohen over to help kind of defend on the perimeter a little bit more. Cohen and Frankie stepped in, and they were really big pieces to actually help clamp down on Rutgers for a while to help kind of extend the game and extend the lead. And so I know it was a 7-point win. It wasn't that close. I think with a couple minutes to play, MSU was up 12 or 13. Like we said, Rutgers started going nuclear from 3. It kind of reminded me about that Iowa game a little bit a couple years ago where we were up 12 with a minute to go and ended up losing. But to Emmett's point, this team didn't falter. They didn't panic. You'd see previous teams have issues getting the ball in, making desperation passes and this and that. None of that. They were cool, calm, and collected, and they just got the ball in, took their, fouls, and went right to the free throw line, knocked the shots down, and had no issues. So it, got closer, and it ended up being a 7-point game. But in years past, this game would have been 2 or 3 points, and you're barely hanging on at the win at the end. So credit to them. It was a really good effort today. This is one of those strength in numbers games. I know that's kind of become the loose motto of this team, but like we said, we had scoring all over the place. The team, everybody contributed today, even though the score sheets don't show that necessarily, but it was a good all-around win. So
we had one thing that also stood out to me. We had a starting forward and a starting guard slightly struggled today, I would say. Jackson Kohler went his stat line looks good if you're box score watching. I believe he was 1 for 1 on field goals, 2 rebounds, but had 3 fouls and a turnover in only 10 minutes. Plus minus said that he did not have a great game at minus 13. But then you have Cohen Carr off the bench excelling, and then Jeremy Fears, as Chris said, didn't have a usual Jeremy Fears game, only 4 assists. His entire stat sheet was full of 4s. 4 points, 4 assists, 4 turnovers. But Jace Richardson stepped up as a result. So you see, someone might have an off night, but at the same time, there's a player on the bench able to help their struggles and then still be able to keep them active, engaged on court. And both these guys, they still played 10 and 25 minutes. It's not like Izzo saw them for a 4-minute stint, said, I've had enough, and went with the rest of his players. He still let his guys come in, and both Fears and Kohler, watching that game and rewatching it, I never at any point said, man, just get these guys off the court. They still were active and engaged the entire game. It just, they didn't have the world's best luck, the world's best shot creation, and as a result, you saw guys on the bench step up, and 50 bench points later, Michigan State emerges with a win.
Yep, exactly. And it was, like we said, it was a great effort. We'll take the win. Moving quickly over to the next game, the Golden Gophers of Minnesota will be in at the Breslin Tuesday at 8 p.m. Minnesota, out of nowhere, riding a 3-game win streak with 2 wins, one over Michigan and one over Oregon. They beat Oregon today, so they also beat Iowa on Tuesday last week. So they're riding a nice little win streak. Ben Johnson's got them playing really well of late. I know they didn't start off very well. They were at the bottom of the conference for a while. It's a game MSU should win, but, any given night in the Big Ten, and Minnesota's playing some good basketball of late, so you gotta be on your game, and you gotta pay attention. You can't overlook them, otherwise that's a team that can upset you.
Yeah, this is not the team that Michigan State beat by 18 pretty soundly in December, is one thing that stands out to me. I don't think it's going to be an 18-point victory. As much as I have belief in the Spartans, and I was talking to Chris before the show about how I could see this team in San Antonio for the Final Four. As much as I have faith in that, I don't think this team is going to emerge by 18. I would be very pleasantly surprised, don't get me wrong, but I don't see this as a team that is just going to roll over for the Spartans because everyone's going to be gunning for them at this point. They have a 2-game lead in the conference, so everyone is going to be giving them their A game and trying to knock the Spartans off.
Yep, and we all kind of loosely alluded to it and kind of danced around the topic, but this is starting to shape up like a team that may have something special in them, and this month or so coming up will really dictate and kind of back that, or maybe just prove that we're overinflated just because we played an easier schedule. But we'll see. Like I said a little bit ago, we're going to go through some adversity at some point. So the way to overcome that is easily matched with depth, in my opinion. Like if you have a deep team and you have players that, in this case, we're about 10 deep. So if you come into a game and Jaden Akins has an off night or Jeremy Fears has an off night, you have 4 or 5 other guys that could step up and win you the game. And that's going to be needed. Tough test. Well, really every game on out here is going to be a tough test because, like you said, everybody's going to be gunning for us. But Minnesota, like I said, playing some great basketball. Emmett will be live at the Breslin on Tuesday to cover that, so make sure you're following him on Twitter if you're not already, just to get some live updates. And, of course, we'll recap that game after on our next episode probably. Looking forward to that one Tuesday night. Any last men's basketball thoughts before we start moving on to the other stuff?
We mentioned it during the recap of today's game, but Carson Cooper did go down injured during this game. That is something I will be keeping close watch on about 2 hours before the game tips off. So around 6 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, the injury reports will be live for Michigan State basketball. If there's any update, I will make sure to tweet it out. But that is one thing to watch. Obviously, the Spartans do have multiple options at 5, as we've seen. But Cooper's definitely been having a really good stretch lately and had a couple good plays today as well. So that is just something to keep an eye on. Spartans might be down from, their 10-man rotation to a 9-man rotation against Minnesota.
Yeah, and he looked to be okay when the injury happened. I know they kept him out the rest of the game. I don't think they really needed him. So I think it was more of a precautionary thing to maybe make sure he's good. It looked like maybe he rolled up on his ankle or something like that.
And he done 4 fouls anyway, so
he had
not a ton of risk to play.
Exactly.
No reason to really risk him or get him ejected from the game.
Yeah.
When it's 7 to 13 points.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully he's good to go. We'll know more. I didn't really see much after the game, but I'm hoping he should be fine. So we'll update you on that. Keep it in basketball just a little bit, but moving over to the women's side of the game. They played at Michigan today against a school down the road, number 24, Michigan. And this was a game that I was kind of paying attention to and keeping an eye on. We went into the half down 4. Michigan had put together a pretty good first half and was able to get a 4-point lead going into the break. And that was about all they could muster because the Spartans came out of the gates firing and won handily. Not a close call like maybe the Big Ten women's media page suggested that they narrowly escaped. Yeah, no, it wasn't an outlast. It was, as we like to say in these parts, a BTA game, belt to ass. So 88-58 was the final score. Spartans win by 30. I had a couple, let's see, 1, 2, 3 Spartans in double figures. And yeah.
Shout out Taryn Hollick with 25 points today. Speaking of 25 points, her point total today matches the amount Michigan put up in the second half. Just that's a fun fact for you, but
Yep. And then to add that, Julia Erolds had 18, and Grace Van Sloten also added 18 as well. Solid effort overall from the ladies. A lot of depth scoring too. Jaden Simmons also had
for
11. Who what? Sorry.
Double for Ariel as well.
Yeah,
13.
Yep, 13 boards. So yeah, good effort all around today. And hey, anytime you beat Michigan, that's good in our book. But the Spartans proved to be too much for them. So shout out to the ladies team. Moves them to 17-3 on the year, I believe. They were ranked 21 coming in today. I imagine that ranking will climb. And yeah, that was a great win for Robin Freilich and the girls in Ann Arbor today.
Yep, and they're next back in action this Thursday. They will be hosting Oregon at 6 p.m. Oregon not ranked for women this year, not the Oregon of years past, but still a great game. And if you have nothing going on Thursday at 6 p.m., I highly recommend you go out to see the Lady Spartans for one of these games.
Absolutely. Moving into some other secondary sports, or I hate saying secondary sports, but some maybe not quite as revenue sports. Men's tennis today, number 17 in the country. Nice 4-0 sweep in their match against Liberty today. Like I said, 4-0 made easy work of the boys from Liberty. They advanced and will play number 2 in the country, TCU, tomorrow in their match. That'll be a tough test. The Spartans team's humming. Coach Harry Juden has got them rolling, and Ozan Barris and Aristotelis Thanos. They've been playing really well, and hey, a big game tomorrow and against TCU, but I like our chances going into that. So congrats to the tennis team. Big win today. Gymnastics, I know we talked about it in the last episode. They were getting their first game, or meet, I should say, at the Breslin Center last week against Michigan. That proved to be the lucky charm as they set a season high in points, and they beat Michigan in that meet. Also won today against Ohio State in Columbus. So Gymnastics is still humming. Top 10 team in the country. I think it'll be top 5 probably after this week. I think they were 6th, maybe. Could be off. Emmett's going to look that up for me. But they should be top 5 after this week, I would think, if I was betting on it. I think they would be right there.
They're actually number 4 after the win against Michigan. So they will definitely remain in the top.
Yes, so they will remain. Okay, good. I couldn't remember if there were 6 going into Michigan or what, but
yeah, 6 going into Michigan.
Two good wins, putting up some big points. Shout out to the ladies over on the gymnastic team. They're doing their thing yet again, coming off one of the best seasons last year they've had in quite a long time, and it looks like they're humming right along and hoping to build on that.
All I'm hearing from this is that, especially after the amount they put up in the Breslin Center, they need to go back to the Breslin more often for big matches.
Absolutely.
You'll be able to sell it out. You'll be able to get that crowd behind you, and you'll be able to put up a season high in points. I think that's a win.
Yeah. Hey, and knowing Alan Haller, hopefully he'll get some more matches in there. And I know it's always fun to host like the regional meets and the Big Ten championships. Maybe we can get another Big Ten championship meet at the Breslin in the future.
Not to bring it back to this, but I think that basketball should repay the favor and go and have a match of their own inside something. I know we don't really use the Jensen Fieldhouse anymore, but I would love to see either an exhibition, early season match or something. Against there, we saw Penn State do that in the past a couple years prior. So I'd love to see something like that happen for the Spartans to go and repay, for the Spartans basketball team to go and repay the favor.
I always thought it would be cool to do the his own alumni game at Jensen, just because if you do it over break when the full student body isn't on campus, that's probably a little bit easier to facilitate since Jensen isn't going to hold as many people. But yeah. I think that'd just be a unique thing to give the alumni a chance to go back and do something cool and different. And I think it'd be kind of cool. So that'd be fun to see in the future. But yeah, so talking wins and wins and wins, let's move over to probably our most winningest program humming right now, the men's hockey team. They did slip to number 2 in the rankings after a split series last weekend against Michigan. I know we didn't really cover it too much in the last episode, so I'll just give you the rundown. Last weekend was the home and home series. We were at Yost in Ann Arbor on Friday, and they lost 3-2 in overtime. Kind of just came out, I don't want to say flat. Michigan's goaltender was playing one of the best games I've seen him play in a while, and just couldn't find the back of the net. Ended up giving up a tough break in overtime and losing there. But Still got a point, which was crucial because Saturday for the return game at Munn, they came out of the gates firing, ended up winning 4-1 Saturday to take 4 of 6 points against Michigan, which was good enough to keep them pacing with Minnesota at the time, who is the team that we're kind of neck and neck with in the Big Ten standings. Always good to beat Michigan. Tough seeing them lose to Michigan once, but that's okay. We kind of avenged that on Saturday, and it got us primed for this weekend series, which happened both games in East Lansing Friday and today against the number 4 in the country, Minnesota Golden Gophers. Like I said, the team that we're fighting hand in hand with in the Big Ten standings. It was a big weekend for the boys against Minnesota. If you count shootout goals in today's game, which you don't for real statistics, but for my stat inflation purposes of this, I'm going to say if you count shootout goals, the boys hung 14 goals on Minnesota in the 2 games played this weekend. Majority of them coming yesterday, Friday in the first game. Final score of that game was 9-3. Yes, I said that right. 9-3. Not going to lie. It was
bad football game. That's just a bad football game, if you ask me.
Yep, classic Big Ten football score right there. But it was awesome to see when the 7th goal went in the 3rd period. You saw clips of George Blaha's famous touchdown MSU echoing throughout Munn. The boys were humming yesterday. It was just a offensive, just piling it on. It was impressive to watch. Tanner Kelly opened the scoring. Oliver Moore for Minnesota tied it up at 1-1. Then Tommy Menisto gave us a 2-1 lead. Minnesota tied it shortly after. And then the floodgates started opening. David Gucciardi, Daniel Russell, David Gucciardi made it 5-2. Jimmy Snuggerud, Minnesota's probably best player, made it 5-3 and kind of pulled them close to go into the 3rd period. But then the Spartans just said, okay, enough is enough. 2 goals in the 3rd from Isaac Howard. Yep. 2 goals in the 3rd from Isaac Howard. Charlie Strammel added 1. Patrick Geary added 1. 9-3. Trey Augustine didn't have his best game, but didn't need to. That's okay. Big 3 points last night. And then we went into today's game. Officially goes in the books as a tie, 3-3, but we did win 2-0 in the shootouts to pick up that extra point. So that clears up 4 of 6 points on the weekend. 5 of 6 points on the weekend. And, up 5 points in the Big Ten standings. So that puts a nice little bit of separation between us and Minnesota. And that will also help us go a long way in potentially getting the number 1 ranking back from Boston College, but they won last night and I think are winning or may have won already today. So I don't know if we'll be back at number 1 or not, but we should be right there.
Boston College won.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they beat Boston. So as we mentioned earlier in the year before the BC series, when we did kind of the hockey season preview, I think MSU and Boston College are the best 2 teams in the country so far throughout the regular season. That really hasn't been dispelled. So it'll be interesting to see if we have to play them again. I'm kind of hoping we avoid it, but at the same time, I like our chances against anyone when Trey Augustine is our goalie. So the depth scoring of late has been really good. 3rd line, 4th line, typing in some secondary scoring. Isaac Howard's been unreal the last few weeks. I know there was a couple weeks ago he had 4 goals against, Ohio State or Wisconsin? I can't remember. He had a 4-goal game a couple weeks ago. And then obviously 2 last night. So he's been playing really well. He's starting to get in the talk for the Hobie Baker Award, which is college hockey's Heisman, basically, if you want to put it in football terms. I do want to add in fans can actually vote for the Hobie Baker. So if you want to try to get Iceman in consideration, you can go to, I got the website right here, hobiebaker.com/vote, and throw some votes Isaac's way. So that's where we're at with hockey. Like I said, a couple of big wins and big series. They've moved to 23-3 on the season. They play Ohio State next weekend for a 2-game series in Columbus. And, actually, it's not even next weekend. They play Thursday and Friday. That's different. So next week we'll have a couple games in Columbus. And then after that, you get the one last home game against Michigan, and then you play the duel in the D against Michigan at Little Caesars. So first weekend in February.
A lot of hockey left in the season, and definitely a lot to look forward to. So worth mentioning, Trey Augustine is also eligible for the Baker Award. I'm personally leaning towards Isaac Howard myself because you don't see a season like this from, I would say, anyone leading the country in scoring. Augustine has been the best goaltender in college hockey the last 2 years, don't get me wrong, but I think it's very rare to see a Spartan leading scoring.
Yeah, it is. And Trey will absolutely get his accolades. He'll probably be one of the favorites for the best goalie, the Mike Richter Award. Got another gold medal with Team USA. He's as decorated as any player that is in the country. Isaac's just having one of those special seasons you haven't seen, especially out of a Spartan in quite some time. We're talking Mike Donnelly back in like the 80s when he was setting scored records and they won the national championship in, I think, 86. So it's great to see. It's great to see. And it's honestly needed. I was kind of worried on how we were going to replace some of the scoring from last year. Isaac's really stepped up and really kind of taken over. And it's good to see. Unfortunately, he is a Tampa Bay Lightning draft pick. If you're a Red Wings fan, you don't want to see the Lightning getting any more good players. But I think Isaac will eventually be gracing NHL rosters for quite some time in the not so distant future.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
So, but shout out to Adam Nightingale and the team. Another fun season unfolding. Like you said, still a lot to go. We have a total of sorry, let me count them for you here. We got 2 against Ohio State, 2 against Michigan, 2 against Penn State, and then 2 against Notre Dame to close regular season play. Then we'll have Big Ten tournament, then hopefully a long March Madness in hockey run, the Frozen Four run, I'm hoping. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, we'll update you more as that goes along.
Also, shout out to Patrick Geary getting the monkey off his back and finally getting that first goal of the year.
Yes.
Do you want to shout that out?
Absolutely. He's couldn't buy a goal of late. We'll just put it that way. But he did get a goal the other night, so hopefully that kind of opens things up and gets the confidence back for him. That just leaves football. I know we're going a little long, but we did have some football news this week. We had 2 recruiting commits. Antonio Johnson, a class of 2025 offensive lineman from Orchard Lake St. Mary's, committed yesterday. Brings MSU and Coach Smith to go 5 of 5 of the Orchard Lake St. Mary's kids with walk-ons in the 4 commits we got in this year's class. So I do like the, and Emmett, I'm sure I'll touch more on this, but we're really beefing up the offensive line and the depth in the offensive room. I know we talked about this at length throughout football season. We were running out of bodies on the offensive line, so it's good to see. You'll have the stat, Emmett, but I think we have like 20-something offensive linemen on the roster right now.
Yeah, we have 23 offensive linemen on roster right now. There is the option for a 24th to return if Brandon Baldwin elects to return. That said, he wasn't on the spring roster. We'll touch more on the spring roster later once we do a spring preview for football. But we have 23 offensive linemen, and additionally, 20 of those linemen are on campus right now, with Rashawn Rogers, Johnson, and Drew Nichols set to join them in the summer. This does include preferred walk-ons. That said, we've seen preferred walk-ons star for Michigan State in the past. Would not overlook them. You have enough maybe for a spring game. I would not commit to saying there will be a traditional spring game just because of the way the transfer portal works. Any depth player that has a standout game is going to get tampered with. There's no doubt. You saw it last year, a couple years back with Colorado. I think they had a receiver have 140 receiving yards, entered the transfer portal the next day because he was getting offered 6-7 figures to transfer.
Yeah, absolutely, and kind of smart to keep the kind of cards close to the vest there. And you do the same practice setting we've had the last few years for a spring game, and it's not as, I guess, fanfared, and you don't see as much. Stats aren't the same, so it's a good way to evaluate and still see what you got. So they did release the spring practice schedule. We'll touch on that more in a second because they don't want to take away from recruiting. We did land our first 2026 commit, Joey Caudell from Ohio. He is a 3-star. He's going to play tight end at MSU most likely, but in his high school team, he plays quarterback, he plays tight end, he plays outside linebacker. He's ran the ball, obviously more as a mobile quarterback, but he kind of does everything for them. Also, at his high school, he plays basketball and runs track. So very athletic, multi-sport athlete. I've got an article, I believe it's up on Shadows right now, kind of profiling him off his commitment. I'm kind of excited. It's a good first piece. It's not the prototypical, tight end that we've been known to maybe run after and get, but he's good size. I believe he's, I want to say 6'5", 215 pounds. Yeah, so he's a good size, athletic. He can catch the ball, but he's really smart. He's got a really high football IQ. Obviously, playing quarterback that helps. It helps you diagnose a defense and kind of look for spots. I know we've seen the quarterback to tight end transition happen before. Most famous one's probably Travis Kelce in the NFL. But Emmett's got
also from Ohio, by the way.
Also from Ohio, New Heights, or Cleveland Heights, I should say, New Heights podcast.
Not the podcast.
But he was the most famous example of going from quarterback in college and switching to tight end and really excelling at it. There's been others though, and Emmett will touch on those. I think Joey's a good first piece. I like a lot to his game. Obviously a high upside. He didn't have a ton of offers in general. The ones he did have were mostly MAC offers. I think MSU was his first Power 4 offer. But clearly something Coach Lindgren, Coach Wozniak, Coach Smith, they all identified as some traits that could really be developed and could be a potential impact player after some time kind of building his body and learning under this staff.
Yeah, looking at Joey Caudill, he is very much like a lot of what this staff targets. You want those multi-sport guys with the ability to play other positions, that ability just to contribute and be an athlete, which is more of what the mold of Jonathan Smith has been recruiting. Like Chris said, you don't see a ton of these Power 4 offers yet for Caudill. I think it is a matter of yet, not a matter of if.
Yeah.
Depending on if Caudill will be really paying attention to many offers, because right now he is overjoyed to be a Spartan. Looks very likely to be locked in. Other notes on Caudill, he is from Mansfield, Ohio. He would be one of quite a few Spartans who have hailed from Mansfield, Ohio, including on the 2024 team, Angelo and Avion Gross, both hailed from Mansfield, Ohio. I checked, they did go to different high schools. It's not the exact same high school that the Grosses went to, but that was something that stood out. Other examples, I'm not saying that this is comparisons or anything of the sort, but other examples of high school quarterbacks turned tight ends. In recent memory, Tyler Warren, who just finished 7th in the Heisman voting for Penn State, he was a high school quarterback. Most recent example for Michigan State would be Hampton Fay, who was a quarterback in Texas, turned into a tight end and also played safety for a time for Michigan State before transferring to Oklahoma. And the most recent example of a Spartan who stayed multiple years would be Matt Sokol. Sokol was a quarterback, actually was from Michigan, from Rochester, and then played tight end for MSU and actually made the league and was on the practice squad for the Steelers this year during playoffs.
Yep. Yeah, so it's definitely been done. And it's something you look at when you have a quarterback specifically switching, because like I kind of alluded to, they know how to read opposing defenses. They have kind of a higher football IQ. So when you're switching over to tight end, you're already understanding, maybe soft spots in the coverage that the defense is running, certain blocking schemes and stuff like that. So it's kind of an easier transition. That being said, I'm all for it if it works. Tyler Ward and Travis Kelce are probably the ceiling. Well, Travis Kelce's probably above the ceiling, but Tyler Warren would be like, if he has the same career trajectory as Tyler Warren, I think we'd all be ecstatic.
I will not complain about a guy being top 10 in Heisman voting as a senior.
That's
just me, though. I mean, call me crazy, but...
Right, one of the top tight ends in Penn State history, so can't complain too much. Obviously, if that were to happen, I think it's probably more likely that it doesn't, but Joey looks like one of those Spartan guys who's not shying away from getting his hands dirty and putting in the work, so I think he'll fit in well, and he's got some of the best coaches. Coach Waz is a really great tight end coach. He'll work with Courtney Hawkins, too, in some receiving and catching standpoints, who's obviously one of the best. So we got the staff in place to help him develop. So
one other thing also for tight ends, I do not believe that the staff will be done yet on recruiting tight ends. They had originally had 2 tight ends committed for the 2025, which the 2025 class is this year's incoming freshman. 2026 is what class Caudill is under and others. The Spartans originally had 2 commits at Jaden Savory, another one of the Orchard Lake St. Mary's kids, and Emmett Bork, but he elected to flip his commitment to Wisconsin during the football season, elected to stay closer to home. That said, the current top 3 in tight ends on the depth chart for MSU, that being Michael Masunas, Jack Velling, and Brennan Parachek, all are in their last 2 years of eligibility as Spartans, so I highly expect MSU to try to land 2, maybe even a stretch of 3 with the 105 scholarship limit. You might see the Spartans stretch for a third tight end in this class. I know that there are quite a few tight ends who are trending with MSU. Not sure how the Joey Caudill commitment affects that, if it does at all.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to much. A name, I know people kind of ask me at times what's a name to look out for. Jack Janda is one of the names in the 2026 class that's pretty commonly
Agreed.
thrown around. MSU's been heavily involved in his recruitment. He's getting some attention from other schools, obviously. He's a Michigan product, from Michigan, I should say, and the Wolverines, I know, are one of the schools that were interested in him, among other. But he's a stand-up tight end prospect coming out in the 2026 class, and MSU's been really involved in his recruiting, so that would be a beast. Hopefully we could land. Like you said, I think you want to get 2, probably even 3, just because of some of the depth we're going to be losing in the next couple of years. So hopefully you'll see 1 or 2 more added at least. But yeah.
Keep in mind, we also have Wyatt Hook, who we have not saw as a Spartan yet. He was a member of the 2024 class. I did not dress most of the season. Do not know if that was an injury or just a matter of how many tight ends this year's staff had. We did lose Adamola Felai to the transfer portal. He's going to Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
Another name that I would keep an eye on, not necessarily this one would be a stretch goal for me, and I think the Spartans would be overjoyed to have him. 2025 quarterback Leo Hannon's a high school teammate, 2026 tight end Luke Sorensen. Sorensen is taking off in recruiting. I believe he's up over 20 offers at this point now. The Spartans were one of the first, went to offer him, I believe, last month. But there is a ton of competition for Sorensen. He would more fit the mold of what you would look for also a very viable option as a blocker, which is something the Spartans, especially with their last 2 commits in Savory and Caudill, you would also try to look for a blocking tight end. Michael Masuna's on this year's roster, if you will. So I would not be surprised to see Luke Sorensen be heavily targeted. Also, I believe, Chris, there's a kid in Hawaii that the Spartans are pursuing as well.
Yeah, forgive me if I mispronounce his name, but I believe it's Tamaine Purcell.
Why do you think I passed it off to you? Yeah. I didn't want to mispronounce it.
He has been being kind of, I don't want to say exclusively, but he's been getting a lot of uptick in offers, and MSU's been pretty heavily involved in his recruiting. You're going to kill me with the other name, but Coach Leggy Samoa, I always pronounce it.
One sec, let me look for, I have a pronunciation.
Yeah, you got to pronounce it. Our D-line coach, Leggy, is also Polynesian and has been the primary recruiter for a lot of the Hawaii recruits that we're going after. He's got great relationships with all of them, and he's been kind of reaching out. And I know since Jonathan Smith has taken over, we've gotten a lot of kids from the Rainbow State coming into this program, and I would think that continues. Hopefully, I don't necessarily know if he's going to come into us or no, but I think that strategy of kind of having that, I've dubbed it the Polynesian pipeline, it would be great because there's a lot of talent in Hawaii, and it's not always necessarily tapped into. So I would like to see that.
Yeah, speaking of that Polynesian pipeline, on top of kids from Hawaii with numbers 2, 3, and 4 in the 2024 class now at Michigan State, that being Rustin Young, Analu Lafele, and Kakai Burnett. Those 3, in addition to Polynesian high school prospects from Utah from previous classes, Ben Roberts, a name that a lot of people, myself included, have as a breakout player for this year, and linebacker transfer Asiamoa from BYU also played out in Utah. Additionally, Leonard Ayu is another one of the Polynesian players that has committed to Michigan State. He was originally a member of the 2023 or 2024 class before doing a mission. He is back now and will be practicing with the Spartans and hopefully playing in some games next year. That's something we're going to look forward to. He did not early enroll, however, so it's going to be interesting to see how quick Leonard can knock the rust off.
Yeah, he was Coach Smith's commit at Oregon State in 2023 and then elected to go on his mission trip. And Coach Smith, he was the kind of surprise on signing day in December that he was the first one to turn his letter in, and we were all kind of like, wait, who's this kid? Because we didn't hear about any recruiting or anything like that. But Coach Smith kept in touch with him and kind of, kept that relationship open. And when he got back from his mission, Jonathan Smith called him and said, hey, still want you to come play for me if you want to come to East Lansing. And he was all about it. And like I said, was the first one on signing day in December. His letter of intent was in, I think, at like 7:02 when they can start sending him in at 7 o'clock. So he was impressive too.
With a big shocks on signing day.
Yeah. So yeah, it's it's a pipeline. It's a relationships that we're trying to really cultivate. I know a lot of the Polynesian players that you think of in like the NFL and whatnot are more of like the offensive defensive linemen. And we certainly are going after a lot of those. Rustin Young, for example, was one of the highest rated offensive linemen and out of Hawaii. And so it's a good, like I said, it's a good place to kind of tap in because I think it kind of gets overlooked in recruiting. To kind of circle back to Luke Sorensen too, Servite kid, one of the big high schools out in California. So if we were able to land him, I know Leo Hannon's on staff. They were teammates for a while there. If we were able to somehow land him, just the more Servite, like the kids from Servite, Mater Dei, St. John Bosco, those are all football hotbeds out in California, and they're some of the most talented high schools in the country. So the more players and relationships you can build on those staffs, that ultimately just helps recruiting in the future. Because, I mean, you get kids, Servite, notable Equanimous St. Brown, Mater Dei, his brother, obviously, Lion, Amonra St. Brown. Those kind of players are just that they all come from those schools out in California. So you can start recruiting those and getting a lot of players from those types of schools, then you're doing a lot of things right in recruiting. So, but just to kind of wrap it up, we did like kind of touch on it. Spring practice schedule was released. What'd you say? I think 15 spring practices were penciled in. We're looking like a tentative. It hasn't been officially announced, but we're looking maybe around the April 19th mark for the spring game. Thoughts on that?
Easter weekend is something, but at the same time, I know I, for one, would love to be able to go and watch my Spartans on spring, for spring football, and then get to go and celebrate Easter the next day. So I wouldn't necessarily complain. That said, I do not know how well attended the game could be if you have people going out to be with family during that time, especially seeing that it's one of those holiday seasons. Additionally, the Izzo Legacy Walk/Run will not be taking place the exact same day as the spring game. As it stands, if we are under the assumption that it will be on April 19th, as the Izzo Legacy Walk/Run is scheduled for Sunday, April 27th. That is something that's new. I think that might also be because of the holiday season itself, but that is something that is new compared to 2024, and a little bit disheartening for me, as I definitely like seeing all those people on campus, and it was a great way to take advantage of that by inviting people out to the spring game with free admission.
Yep, absolutely. So we'll see, and that's not officially penciled in stone yet as far as like the exact dates for the spring game and spring schedule. I think the Izzo run is probably penciled in, but
that one is officially announced.
But yeah, we'll see kind of how spring practices unfold and what ones are released to the media, to the public to attend. Which ones media can attend. I know Emmett will probably try to get to as many.
I'll be trying my best.
Yeah, get to as many as he can. We had him out there last year for as many as we could. We'll try again this year. So hopefully we can get some inside access for you on those as they come out. But I think that'll wrap it up. I know we went a little bit long, lots of content to cover. We appreciate you guys coming in. Any final thoughts, Emmett?
Not really. I'm just excited to see how basketball and hockey go, especially considering the amount of success. Gymnastics is looking promising too, top 5 team in the country. Tennis is ranked. It seems like everyone that is playing women's basketball is ranked. Every team that is doing a sport right now for the Spartans is ranked, and that is a very exciting time. I know people have given hate to Alan Haller in the past, but it is clear to see what he is building. Give him patience, let Jonathan Smith cook, because that is really the one main team you really see that does not have that success following them yet. Look at the other hires that Alan Haller has had. I would say let this team come together. I think there are very exciting things in the immediate future for East Lansing and in the future for East Lansing.
Absolutely. So that will do it for us. Hopefully our next podcast will come to you next week to recap some of the early stuff, or earlier in the week stuff, I guess I should say. Hopefully we'll have some more updates on that. And yeah, just kind of humming along with basketball, hockey season, and all the other winter sports. So we appreciate everybody tuning in. Thanks so much. We appreciate all the support. Have any questions, comments, concerns, drop a comment, leave a like, email us at spartanshadowspodcast@gmail.com. Hit up one of us on social media or our podcast socials. We'd be able to answer any questions, try to get you any information we can. Any fun questions that you want to hypothetically have us answer, let us know. We maybe bring it up on the show and discuss it. So we appreciate.
I'm just saying, if I get asked a good enough question during a game day, I might ask it to Tom Izzo, depending on the mood and how relevant it is to what's being asked during those media center days. If I get asked a good question, who knows? You might end up seeing that response tweeted out.
Example of a good question, Tom. Why do you not wear a suit on the sidelines anymore? So, if you know,
here we go again.
But hey, I think nobody's going to be complaining about his wardrobe this year so far. So
whatever he wears, he wins in right now this year. So I'll take it.
Absolutely, and if I can get my hands on one of those quarter zips they were wearing on the sidelines today against Rutgers, I would take those in a heartbeat. So,
for sure.
That'll wrap it up for us. We appreciate it, everybody. Have a good evening. We'll be at you soon. Follow us for all the information you need, and of course, as always, go green.
Go white.